Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LMN Speaker Series. Here at LMN, we're dedicated to helping landscape professionals build better businesses through our industry-leading software and education. Our Speaker Series is designed to bring you best practices from the experts. Today, we're pleased to have Phil Harwood from Grow the Bench walk us through what it takes to be the ultimate snow account manager. The weather's going to hit before we know it. In fact, Alberta here in Canada already has seen some major snowfall. So these best practices are perfectly timed to ensure your snow operations are set up for success. We've saved some time for questions at the end. So please type your questions in the chat window, which can be found in the bottom right corner of the screen. If we can't get to your question, we'll be sure to have Phil reach out with an answer after the webinar. Welcome, Phil. I'll now turn it over to you for answers to the question, are you the ultimate snow account manager?
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and just reflecting on this topic, I'm so excited to be speaking about account management. And one of the reasons why is because I think it's one of the areas where there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstandings about what an account manager is and isn't, and what they should be, and what their goals should be, and how much volume they can handle, and all these questions, all these variables. And I've seen this over and over again. One of the things I have the opportunity to do is facilitate peer groups and sit in on roundtable discussions. And so, for example, if anyone's ever been to GIE in Kentucky Landscapes or Congress, right, there's really great roundtable discussions. And I love getting into these roundtable discussions about account management and just listening to all the different perspectives about how different companies handle this account manager role in this position. And they're so different. It's incredible how different they are. And inevitably, the account manager is also something else, right? There's more than one hat. So you have the account manager combined with an operations manager, kind of a dual role. And we'll actually talk about that today in this webinar. But sometimes the account manager is also something else. So a lot of times they're the owner, or they're the office manager, or they're responsible for marketing, or they're also responsible for fill in the blank, right? And all these different configurations of what an account manager is. So the problem with that is that it's really difficult then to have best practices and really to establish some concrete measures of what an account manager should do, what they should deliver, and what their job should look like. And this is even more difficult in the snow because of how difficult that business is in general, right? It's more complicated to be an account manager typically in the snow business, especially if you're involved in the snow operation, right? And if you're not, if you're an account manager in the snow world and you're not involved in the operation, then what does that look like? What time do you start your day? What does the routine look like? What does a normal day for an account manager look like during a snow event, after a snow event, and those types of things, right? So again, just there's kind of an industry-wide, there's a lack of consistency, there's a lack of clarity around this position, and I think there's a huge opportunity for us in the industry to really get our arms around this position and really make it be optimal for us in our company. So that's really the goal of today, is for me to kind of do my best to impart 34 years of wisdom in this industry and really help you, give you some insight and some frameworks so you can really frame out this position effectively in your company, knowing that it's probably going to look different than any other company in the industry. And that's okay, as long as it's clear within your company, right? And you're making thoughtful decisions about this position, okay? I want to begin by talking about just what is the account manager? What's the essence of an account manager? So I crafted this definition here on the screen. I'll just read to you. It says, the account manager is the primary contact for the customer, responsible for customer satisfaction as evidenced by customer retention. I think that's the core, right? That's the essence of what an account manager needs to be. And I think that's important to just start with this. In fact, maybe you print this off and put it on the wall, because all the other stuff that gets layered on top of the account manager sometimes takes away from this, or makes this really difficult in the life of an account manager to be that customer advocate and really take care of the customer and retain them. We put up all these roadblocks and all these difficulties for account managers to do what really is the core of their job. So I think it's important to just call it out right from the beginning. This is what account management is, and as we get into some of the other variables, it's important to just maybe come back to this, right? And then specifically for snow, one of the really great tools that's out there for account management for snow was created by the Snow and Ice Management Association, SIMA. Some of you are SIMA members. Great organization. I've been involved in SIMA for many, many years. And actually, I was part of the task force that created this tool. And this, what I'm going to show you here in the next few slides is called the Best Practices for Snow Service Procurement 52-Week Visual Timeline. And this is a great tool that outlines the whole process of the snow and ice management business. And it's a great tool for account managers to really sit with their clients and really walk them through so they fully understand what this business is and how they can be a better client, buyer of snow services, and how your company is geared up to provide those services. And so 100%, this is a free tool. 100% of you should have this tool in your possession. There's no reason not to have this. If you're in an account management role, go to the SIMA website, download this thing. It's free. You should all have it in your possession and be using it. So this is what the timeline looks like, and I'm just going to take a minute and just walk you through it quickly. There's more information that I'm going to go through on this webinar, but I want you to understand what this tool is. So there's a 4-season timeline here, kind of colored in. Spring is green, summer, fall, winter's blue, and it just kind of walks through the whole year. And really, the snow and ice business is a 12-month business. It's a year-round business, and the bigger players in the industry are really even dedicating staff to snow year-round because there's so much to do, especially as you get larger in the business. But on the top of the timeline, so above the colored line here, there's a section that's really for the buyers of snow services. So who are buyers of snow services? Well, those are the property owners or the management companies or a homeowner, right? Those are the people that are buying the service. And so the timeline shows kind of their world, right? So the different pieces to the puzzle and when they should be occurring, best practice. And the key to this whole chart here is this bubble in the middle that says contract award. And we want to really educate the buyers of snow services about the need to sign contracts and award contracts early in the fall, right? So that there's plenty of time for the contractors to procure equipment and hire staff and train them and get everything ready to go, right? The worst time to sign a contract is the day before it's going to snow, right? Or the morning after a snowfall, right? So we want to move that up. Well, if we're going to award contracts in the fall, then we need to be doing things in the summer and spring that lead up to that. And that's where you can see RFQ processes and all that stuff, right? Below the line, below the colored bar here, is the kind of the world of the service provider, so the contractor. This is our world, right? What are we doing in the spring? What are we doing in the summer? What are we doing in the fall? Obviously, in the winter, we're providing service, and then we're back in the spring. So it's a really nice visual that shows the whole year. It's a great tool. Then it even gets more detailed because the next part of this is a lot more detail about the from the customer side of things. So above that line, so you can see facility property management best practices, and it talks about contract negotiations and legal reviews, and really kind of colors this in a little bit more. And then if we go below the line, we have another whole sheet that's specifically giving more detail about the service provider perspective. And then if we keep going into this document, we have this really awesome thing called a contract award date risk meter. I love this. And so we have the green zone, which obviously we want to be in the green zone. and we have the red zone, we don't want to be in the red zone, right? And kind of the point of this is if we are settling on contracts and we're agreeing on contracts, awarding contracts at the proper time, which is the green zone, there are all these benefits to the customer, benefits to the service provider, us, and there are actually a few cons to doing that as well. And so we're being fully transparent, pros and cons, but a lot more pros for everybody and a few cons. And if we award contracts in the red zone, there are very few pros and there are a lot of cons, again, for the customer and for us as service providers. So this is a wonderful educational tool for account managers. And again, I feel like every single account manager should have this thing laminated. They should be walking through this information with their customers. They should be really encouraging people to conform as much as possible to best practice, right? Okay, now shifting gears, I want to talk about major responsibilities of an account manager, okay? And this is where, we can start kind of thinking in terms of best practices for account management. If we could create, a framework to really outline this account manager position that's so difficult to get our arms around, what would be some of the components, right? And so these 5 major responsibilities are business development, business research and development, fulfillment, business support, and professional development. We're going to break down each one of these. And so let's start with business development, the first one on the list. What does this entail? Well, first and foremost, it entails sales. And some of you right now are saying, wait a minute, time out. Account management and sales are 2 different things. Account managers don't sell, salespeople sell. Don't mix this up. And this is a big argument that we have in the industry, right? Whether or not an account manager should also have a sales goal and a sales territory and blah, 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 right? Well, the reality is account managers should sell because they're maintaining relationships, they're talking to clients, they're on properties, they're very aware of what clients need if they're doing their job, and they should be just organically, naturally opening up sales opportunities. So it'd just be natural that they would follow those sales opportunities through, that they would handle the renewal, they would sell enhancements, they would expand the relationship, having a conversation with a client about who else is in their organization that they may be able to introduce them to. Maybe there's another property that that client has that they're struggling with. Maybe the client has no idea that you want to grow your business and that you're looking for more work. And you just having that conversation, asking the question, what else can we look at? Who could you introduce me to? Opens up a whole nother conversation that maybe you've never had before with a client. So 100% absolutely account managers should have some sales effort. Now, I don't know if they should have a sales goal. That's unique to every company, and somebody has to have sales goals, right? There has to be goals for renewals and new business and all that, and that should be articulated. I don't know if I want to say that every single account manager should have a sales goal. They should definitely have a goal for renewals, and they should have a goal for enhancements. Don't know if they should have a goal for new business development. That's up to you, okay? That's sales. Sales support, estimating, assisting with sales efforts. So helping the hunter, new business development person, right? Taking the lead with customer relationship management software, whether that's a software program itself or a spreadsheet or whatever it is, just taking the lead on that. That's all sales support stuff. And it's really important to identify specifically what the expectations are for an account manager with respect to those types of things. In some companies, account managers and salespeople don't estimate properties. Operations managers estimate properties because they're the ones who are going to end up doing the work, and they're the ones to assign hours, right? And that's actually a really cool process, and it works really, really well. In other organizations, whoever is selling the work is also estimating the work, and that's fine. There's really not a best practice there. It just needs to be clear. okay? Now with marketing, all kinds of different elements to marketing regarding branding, signage, social media, advertising, promotions, um, everything, right? The whole ball, the whole kit and caboodle. Um, should your account manager have a role in marketing? Should they own the marketing area? Should they be part of the marketing committee, right? Well, they definitely have a role in marketing. They absolutely have a role in marketing because they're engaging with clients, so they're hearing customer feedback. So they absolutely have to assist with marketing, okay? It's important to identify that specific role they have in marketing beyond that, okay? So that's the business development world. Looking at the business R&D world, what does that mean, right? We don't do R&D, we're a contractor. What are we talking about here? Well, research and development is just simply, in my framework here, is just it's about feedback. It's about listening to the customer, asking good questions, keeping your eyes open. So the first bullet point here talks about needs assessment. An account manager should be involved in this, like intentionally getting to the customer. So when I say customer touch, a customer touch is just a customer interaction. So it could be a meeting, email, phone call, Facebook, chat, whatever it is, right? It's just some interaction with the customer, going to visit properties, conducting surveys and assessments. And some of you are saying, well, that sounds like operations, going to visit. That's our operations manager's job, is to ensure quality. I'm not really talking about that. I'm just talking about understanding what the customer needs and being able to bring that back to your team. That's needs assessment, right? And clearly the account manager is probably the best person in the company to really do that. And then needs communication is just taking that information and getting it into the company, right? Getting it into the CRM, passing that information on to operations, onto marketing, onto your management team, and saying, hey, there's an unmet need here. There's something we're missing, or we're struggling. You know, I got some feedback from a client. We need to really look at this part of our business. Whatever it is, right? And just having your eyes open and putting yourself in the shoes of the customer. There's no one better to do that than the account manager. Industry research, being aware of what's happening in the industry, subscribing to publications and going to trade shows and being part of networking opportunities and having a professional network. That's a fair and legitimate expectation of an account manager, because if they're going to be the person that's out kind of engaging with the customer, thinking about what does the customer need, they should also kind of be thinking about what solutions are out there that we could kind of tie in and bring to bear, right? And then the last part of this is competitive intelligence, just being aware of what your competitors are doing. And again, the account manager is in a great position to know this because the customer is engaging with your competitors on other properties, and there's all kinds of opportunities to get information from that customer, even sometimes pricing and contracts. And but beyond that, just who's who and where are they going and how are they doing, and just picking up on things, and not in a sneaky way or a unethical way, but just being aware, right? That's what I'm talking about here. So that's kind of the whole world of business R&D. And then if we move into the area of fulfillment, and this is where it gets really interesting when we have these conversations about account management. Being a liaison to the customer, right? There's no issue there, right? Being the customer advocate, maintaining the relationship with the customer, but then also getting internal with the company, having a good relationship with the management team, with the operations staff, and not being against them or fighting with them, but being on the same team with them, right? That's what a liaison is. It's a two-way street, right? It's the go-between. So sometimes account managers have adversarial relationships with the operations staff in the team, and that's a mistake. So we don't want that. We want a liaison type mentality. Site inspections are part of fulfillment. This is quality control. This is getting on site, making sure things look good. And you can say, well, that's operations. That's somebody else's job. But, you know, if I'm an account manager and I'm going to go meet with my customer on a regular basis, I want to make sure that property is in good shape. So I'm going to take some ownership here too. I'm going to keep my eye on things. And as much as operations needs to do quality control and check sites, I'm going to go look at my sites too. Maybe not as much, maybe not as religiously, but I'm going to spot check. I'm going to make sure my customers are taken care of. Another part of fulfillment, the last two bullet points, are getting involved in the crews, like supervising crews or even working on a crew. And sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes the account manager also is working in the field. Again, every company's different. It's important to figure this out and clarify it. We certainly don't want it to be unclarified. And we'll come back to that dual role model here in a couple of minutes. Regarding business support, this is another area really important to clarify, and it's a key part of being an account manager is doing some support type tasks, right? So one is billing. A lot of times the account manager is the best person to kind of maybe not do all the billing all the way to the end, but really to support billing, to make sure that all the information is getting to the right people in the right places in the right format so that billing can be done very quickly. We want to bill quickly, want to be able to bill very quickly after work is completed, ideally within a couple days. If you bill that quickly, some companies bill every day, other companies bill twice a month, once a month, whatever. We certainly don't want information to go to the office and to the people that are responsible for billing, and the folks in the office need to solve all these riddles and reconstruct this giant puzzle to be able to push out a bill. And that's very common in this industry, and that's why people are billing 45 days, 60 days, 90 days after work's completed. Huge problem in this industry. And the account manager has a key role in this because they probably sold the work. They were probably involved in getting the work done, even if they're not involved in operations. And they probably are the only person to put it all together before it goes to the office. With respect to reporting, there's probably several different expectations for different types of reporting that we expect for our account managers regarding expenses, maybe even approving timesheets if they're involved in operations, status reports, filling in scorecards, dashboards, site visit reports. Again, just super important to clarify this stuff so everyone knows what's expected, right? Job costing. The account manager might be the best person to actually job cost or be responsible for analyzing job cost reports and really trying to figure out why jobs were very profitable or if they missed the mark, right? There's probably not a better person to do that job costing. And, again, every company's different. Maybe you have a CFO or a controller who does job costing and kind of does the analysis and then informs everyone of what happened and what changes need to occur. But a lot of times that account manager is probably the only person that can really do it effectively. So again, clarify their role in job costing. And then maybe there's some meetings the account manager needs to attend and have on their calendar. Let's just get those clarified so there's no guessing there, right? And then regarding professional development, this is a whole nother category, but this is really important, not only important for an account manager, but for anybody. What certifications do you expect your account managers to have or to be pursuing? Are you providing them coaching? And what is their responsibility to participate in that? What are you expecting them to get from coaching, right? Regarding continuous education, what are you providing for them? What are you expecting them to be a part of? And there's CEUs involved in continuing education, especially if there's a certification. So again, just clarifying all this, and actually what we're doing here with all these roles that we're clarifying, we're basically building a job description, right, for that account manager. And I think that's what we're missing. So a lot of companies are missing. They don't have a clear list of responsibilities for their account managers, and so kind of nobody knows what the account manager is doing, which is a huge mistake. So we talked about 5 different roles, and we broke down each of those 5 roles. In addition to all that, because there is more, there's some requirements that I think we need to clarify for our account manager. Number 1, absolutely critical that account managers share 100% all in on the core values of the company. Some of you have not articulated your core values. That's a big mistake. Circle that one right now, put a note next to that, write that down. If you don't know what your core values are, how can you expect your account managers to be in alignment with your core values? So that's a very, very important thing. Your account managers are the face of your company to your clients. And if they aren't the right people and they're not reflecting the values of the company, you got a huge problem on your hands. So it's really important to that's not something we should gloss over. We should really look at that, not only with hiring and staffing and placement, but with development of people into account management positions, and just on an ongoing basis, giving them feedback about fitness and really holding them to that standard, because they are the face of the company. So they reflect the values of the company. They need to. Regarding experience, what requirements do you have? What kind of experience does an account manager need to be effective in your company? And what kind of education do you expect or demand from an account manager to be placed into that role, right? It's really helpful to know what those things are. They might not need, a formal degree to be an effective account manager, but they probably need to know something. So what is it? What in your environment, the type of work you do they need to know plant names? Do they need to know turf science? Do they need to know equipment maintenance? What are the things that they need to have to be effective in the job? And if they don't have those things, they're probably going to struggle or fail. And the last thing we want to do is put someone into an account manager position and just watch them fail. And this happens all the time. And it's not only bad for the company, it's really terrible for the customer, because the customer has to deal with this person who shouldn't be in that role to begin with. And then when that person crashes and burns, they have to start all over with someone else. So, shame on us for putting people in those positions when they shouldn't be in those positions. And then regarding specific attributes and skills, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into that, and that'll pretty much consume the rest of our webinar here with a little bit of bonus information. So we have created a matrix looking at 3 different categories of skills and attributes, if you will. And we have all this outlined in a really nice PDF document, and we'll make that available to you through LMN. The follow-up email will, I believe, contain a copy of this. Either way, we'll make this available to you some way. And it's really a scoring mechanism for you to evaluate somebody in an account management role. So it could be yourself, or you could be evaluating someone else, right? And so in each of these 3 categories, we have 5 elements, and we're basically going to look at those 5 elements, and we're going to say, if someone is really great at any specific one of these 15 elements, we're going to say they get 5 points, right? If they're an average person, we'll give them 3 points, and if they're a really struggling poor person on that element, we're going to give them 1 point, okay? And obviously our 5 points is better. And if you got 5 points on every single one of these 15 points, you would be the ultimate account manager. So what we're going to do here is we're going to score you or one of your account managers, and we're going to find out if you are the ultimate account manager. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start out with these foundational business skills. Here they are on the screen. We're going to start out with this verbal communication skills. What would it take for someone to be the ultimate account manager when it comes to verbal communication skills? What would that look like? Well, first and foremost, they would probably have a very large vocabulary, probably because they read a lot. So they'd be an extensive reader. They probably read all kinds of stuff, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts or actually physically reading books, at night, whatever, hopefully while they're not driving down the highway. But they would have a large vocabulary, so they'd be able to effectively communicate verbally with people, right? They would probably be a very competent public speaker, very comfortable in front of people. They'd probably have excellent presentation skills. This would be the kind of person that could, walk into, one of the customer's offices and realize that, oh, the customer isn't in their office, they're in the conference room, and there's 30 of their peers in there, and on the spot they could probably go right into a 20-minute presentation on snow and ice management, right? That's an ultimate account manager when it comes to verbal communication skills. Whereas, someone who would be average or poor would never be able to do that. Would probably really struggle with presenting in public, and even just communication verbally like that, especially if you're drifting toward the poor, like if you go in toward the 1 scale. And sometimes we have account managers who really struggle talking to people. They just can't vocalize what they're trying to say, and they would rather text or send emails. They'd rather not get on the phone. And so that's not really great, right? Our ultimate account manager loves talking to people, loves getting in front of people, loves presenting stuff, can talk all day long, right? Get it? Okay, that's a 5. Moving on, written communication skills, very similar, but on the written side. So very advanced writing skills. Our ultimate account manager is going to be able to produce all their own written materials, so proposals, emails, reports. No one's going to have to look it over. No one's going to have to edit it. All the grammar's good. It's correct. It's easy to understand. It's well put together, right? Just really solid communication in written form, right? Whereas anyone else, even an average account manager, I would say probably isn't at that level, right? Probably wouldn't be able to produce some written report without someone else looking at it, a little tweaks here and there, right? And then certainly our poor account manager would probably need someone to write things for them, right? Let's be honest. And we have some of those people, right? We have people in account management roles who can't construct an email properly. They can't write a report. They can't produce a proposal without a whole bunch of crappy grammar and misspelled words and, just horrible construction. And they're not bad people, but they don't have great written communication skills. We're talking about social skills. Our ultimate account manager is going to be really high on the social skill chart. Great networker. They're going to be able to relate to everyone. They're going to prefer face-to-face. They're always going to seek opportunities to get with people. They're going to be totally open to going to things after work or even on the weekend because they're going to be so excited to go hang out with people and go to the party and go to the reception, and right? So that's our ultimate account manager. Regarding emotional stability, this is someone who has a very high emotional quotient. So that means they can handle stress, they can handle deadlines, like it doesn't bury them or knock them off their game, right? They're able to maintain perspective. When this is the person when everything's falling apart, this is the person that can walk in the room and go, time out, everybody. Let's get a war room going here. Let's figure this out. Let's map it out. Let's get some paper. Let's get a whiteboard. Let's not let this. Whereas anybody else is probably going to be, ducking for cover, going to be crumbling in the corner, sucking their thumb. Right? We see this. We see account managers who just buckle under the pressure. They just go hide. Right? It's because they don't have the emotional stability. So our ultimate account manager needs to have a very high, or will have a very high emotional stability quotient. And then accessibility. This is another area where people argue, right, about work-life balance and hours and commitment. Well, our ultimate account manager is just going to love their job. So they're always going to be available. They're never going to worry about it. No one's ever going to be able to tell them, you should really, not think about work. Like you should turn your phone off. Like they're never going to want to unplug. They're always going to want to be available. They're going to be, on Instagram, Facebook all weekend with clients. They're going to be on their smartphone. They're going to be jumping all over phone calls. They're going to be pouncing on emails no matter when they come in. And no one's going to be able to stop them, right? And it's not a requirement. It's just who they are. That's what makes them the ultimate account manager. They're just wired that way, right? we can't force people to be that way, or we're just morons, right? We're just mean managers and unfair. We don't want to force somebody to be accessible all the time, but an ultimate account manager is just going to be that way because that's who they are. So when we move on to our professional business skills, the first item here is initiative. So what does that look like? For our ultimate account manager, this is going to be someone who consistently takes initiative, really proactively addresses customer issues, completely understands the customer's business cycle to make sure that they're really creating value for the customer, right? And the ROI's there. So just jumping into it. Someone who just takes initiative to take care of the customer. Detail orientation. Our ultimate account manager is going to be diligently focused on those small details. They're going to have some really good systems they've developed over the years to be airtight, make sure things don't fall through the cracks. And they're going to make sure everything in the contract is executed properly. They're going to be very aware of what's in the contract. But we see this all the time with account managers where incoming information, most of it gets captured, but sometimes it just falls through the cracks. And that's not acceptable. And certainly if we're going to be an ultimate account manager, we need to be airtight with details because details matter. Regarding self-motivation, our ultimate account manager is going to set goals, their own goals. They're not going to be required to set goals. They're going to just set their own goals, probably stretch goals as well. And they're going to do whatever it takes. And they're not going to care about the clock, and they're not going to care about, the company goal structure. They're going to have their own goals. They're going to be probably setting goals beyond what the company expects of them, right? So if the company says you're going to do X, they're going to say, oh yeah, I'll show you. I'm going to do Y and Z, right? Because that's who they are. Team orientation. Our ultimate account manager is someone who provides leadership with teams, someone who promotes a team environment, who knows that teams are more effective than individuals, and they're going to be a unifying force, right? And a lot of times what we see with account managers is people who don't really want to be part of a team. They want to be independent. They want to have the freedom to do whatever they want. And, that's a problem. That's a real problem. And for all the reasons you can imagine. But our ultimate account manager, totally a team person, right? Regarding continuous improvement, our ultimate account manager has a professional development mindset. They're never going to be satisfied with their knowledge. They're going to take advantage of whatever the company offers, plus probably even make their own investments in their development because that's who they are. You can't stop them. Taking a look at our third category, these are specific business skills for account managers. So first of all is sales ability, and kind of going back to what I said earlier, account managers do sell. So our ultimate account manager is going to be always looking for sales opportunities, and they're going to see selling not as taking something from the client, not a win-lose situation, right? Like a zero-sum game, but they're really going to see sales as a way to service the client. In fact, they would just say that the more a customer buys, the happier they are, right? Selling is service oriented, others focused. And so because of that, they're going to be honing their sales skills. They're going to be trying to improve how they sell. They're going to be just up to speed on latest techniques for selling and best practices. They're going to be just always trying to be better as a salesperson. Our ultimate account manager is going to use technology. They're going to leverage technology. They're going to embrace technology. They're going to probably take the lead on technology, and they're going to just see all the benefits of technology. And honestly, a lot of account managers I've dealt with and interacted with over the years hate technology because they see it as a pain, as a extra thing they need to do, and they don't have a good attitude about it. They're not positive, they're not constructive, and they sometimes will even undermine or sabotage technology. I've seen this happen. So our ultimate account manager, all about the technology, and specifically all about CRM, customer relationship management. Really, our ultimate account manager is the driver of CRM usage. They're taking the lead. They're figuring it out, they're teaching other people, and they're really understanding the value of capturing information and getting it into the system, and then strategically using that information to better plan their customer interactions and their schedules and their site visits and the renewals and all that good stuff, right? All right, results accountability. Our ultimate account manager completely owns the deliverables for the contract. So they know what the contract is requiring, they know what the deliverables are, they're watching not only the work being done, but they're making sure the margins are there. They're very aware of the results coming out of that contract. So again, they're probably doing the job costing, they're probably doing the season end review, so they fully understand how this contract or this job played out from a profit perspective. And then regarding relationship accountability, so the ultimate account manager is someone who owns that customer relationship, really understands how important it is to be customer centric, making sure all those contract details are done and the quality standards are met, but really being focused on developing deep relationships and really owning that customer relationship, right? And so that's what our ultimate account manager is. Now, again, we will be sending out this framework, this scoring guide, and it's really cool. I hope you all do something with it and implement it. But if you were scoring yourself as I went through this quickly, some of you probably have some opportunity to improve, right? So anywhere where there's not a 5, where it might be a 3, or maybe even a 1, or maybe some of you went with a 2 and a 4, that's fine. Looking at where those opportunities are, right? Where can you improve as an account? That's one of the values of using a scoring guide like this, to identify areas for improvement, right? Okay. Now, I told you we would talk about the dual role account ops manager, so let's talk about that real quickly. Very common to have those things blended together, those two roles, and there are some very good reasons to do so, because it's very efficient operationally. It works really well if you're doing a geographic assignment, reduces drive time between the properties, it eliminates redundancy, so you don't have the same people going out to the same property, you know, doing a walkthrough 5 minutes apart. And so it works really well for kind of small and mid-sized companies. But there are some cons, and the cons are that as you have larger clients, they don't have one point of contact because they have to deal with multiple people. So it kind of limits the relationship building that can occur, and it makes it more difficult for the account managers to be really owning the contract, and it makes it hard to even staff these positions, because it's really hard to find someone who's really good at account management and operations management. People tend to gravitate toward one or the other, and this model really is not scalable. So it's a good model, it's very common, it works really well in the right situation, and I always say it works until it doesn't work anymore. So, and it's really a function of growth with your company, okay? Couple tips for account management and for managing account managers, right? Number one, we need to really measure the load, like the burden that we're placing on our account managers. And we need to kind of balance that load, especially if we have multiple people involved in account management. We really need to monitor and rebalance that load so it's fair. And so there's enough time, not only so it's fair, but so that our customers can be better taken care of. So a big part of that load is with property inspections and customer meetings. And so we need to kind of clarify what the expectations are for every single property that's assigned to our account managers, okay? Regarding just common mistakes that managers make when they're managing account managers, okay? It's a whole lot of words there. Number one, placing unqualified people in the account manager role. That was the whole thing I was talking about in the beginning of this webinar for the first 20 minutes or so. We need to make sure that we really understand what the requirements are for this position, what the expectations are from all those different 5 roles, and we have to make sure that we put the right people in these jobs. These are very critical roles, and we can't put people in these positions that are unqualified. And that's not to say everyone's perfect. People have areas where they need to be working on. Maybe someone has a little bit of a deficiency, they just don't know something yet, but we need to understand that, and we need to call that out. We need to support that person so we can kind of color that in, right? That's the whole point of the scoring guide, is to identify those areas of deficiency and help people get what they need, right, to be effective in these positions. Second big mistake that happens in companies from a management perspective is we just give the account managers too many accounts. We just bury them, right? And sometimes just knowingly, right? And it's just really unfair, and really who suffers is the customer more than anybody. Third mistake is overloading the account managers with other tasks, other responsibilities that prohibit them from fully being that customer advocate and taking care of the customer, right? Number 4, big mistake, failing to provide the professional development, the coaching, the support that an account manager needs to keep their head straight, to keep growing and being effective in their position. And the last mistake is, and I just wrote, believing the lie. And this is, I'm going to end with this. I see this all the time. It drives me crazy. Probably nothing makes me more crazy than this. And the lie is that relationships don't matter anymore, that it's all about price. There's no loyalty. Customers don't care. And I thoroughly disagree with that. Relationships do matter. I've been in business for 34 years, and business is all about relationships. And the person that says it's not about relationships really isn't seeing the truth. This is all about relationships, and I feel like that account manager needs to be first and foremost all about developing and maintaining relationships. Okay, we are going to take some questions now, if there's any questions. I was shooting for 1:45. It's 1:47 Eastern time, so we're right on track here. So do we have any questions?
Hi, Phil. Sorry about that. That was great. Certainly very informative. I think we all have a really good understanding on the Academy of the Ultimate Account Manager. We did
Great.
have a few questions come in. So first question comes from Pete, and he's asking, what level of involvement should an account manager realistically have in marketing?
You know, I probably wouldn't put the whole marketing responsibility, the entire ball of wax on an account manager. I think it's too big. I think they, at a minimum, they should be part of the marketing committee, if you will. So I'm a big fan of kind of cross-functional committees. They should have a voice in marketing, but I personally, I wouldn't add, unless you had to and there was no one else to do it and they were the absolute best person. And as long as it didn't take away from their core responsibilities to be a great account manager to their clients, I wouldn't make them responsible for all the branding and all the, you know, promotional decisions for the company, the whole marketing plan. You know, I don't want my account manager, you know, putting up trade show booths and all that kind of stuff, unless it's not going to take away from their account management responsibilities. An account manager has 3 jobs. Properties is going to have a lot different level of availability for those types of other tasks versus, you know, someone who has 150 properties to watch over, right?
Right. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope that answered your question, Pete. Moving along to Joan. Joan was wondering, she said, looking at your best account managers, those that you've worked with, what are the top challenges they face on a daily basis, would you say?
Well, I think one of the challenges that they face is that we're struggling with labor. And so work quality is suffering, sometimes scheduling is suffering, and I think that affects the quality and the reliability of our service delivery. And so when you're the face of that to the customer and you have to answer for that, um, especially if you're not responsible for that part of the company, for recruiting and onboarding and retention, I think that puts you in a difficult position. because you feel like you're always apologizing or dancing, and I think that's difficult. Beyond that, I think one of the most difficult things is for an account manager is whenever that customer changes, and we see that sometimes where we've really developed a great relationship with one of our customers and they move on. And sometimes that's really great because they move on and they take you with you, right? You end up getting another account. But what we really don't want to do is lose that other account, right? Where there's been a change. So I think that's one of the most difficult things because you can
Mhm.
really invest in that relationship, right? Just think about all the time you've poured into that customer. You've really got to know their family, and you went to their daughter's graduation, and maybe your spouses have hung out, like you've done weekend things together, and now they move on, and now you have this brand new person who doesn't know you and doesn't understand the value you can bring or that you have brought to that customer group. And that's a very difficult transition to make. So I'd say those are a couple of things that really stand out to me.
No, and to your point about relationships, certainly for good or bad, that's certainly what it's all about, with the account manager and business in general. And I don't think that point was lost on anyone. So a final question here. This is such a crucial role. How do you recommend incentivizing your best account managers?
That's a great question. And so I think the best scenario I've seen is number one, account managers have their first job is to take care of the customer, and typically account managers spend the majority of their time making sure that happens. And so I think the best compensation model is a fairly aggressive salary, right? That's a base salary, so someone can really provide for their family and not really um, worry too much about the incentive side. I think that's a better model than having a very low base salary and having all kinds of um, bonuses and commissions and incentives that they're at risk for. So I'm more of a fan of having a larger base salary, um, fully compensated position. But I do think it's important to incentivize account managers. I think number one, you incentivize them based on the renewal um, rate, right? The renewals, and that can be at one percentage or pool of dollars, depending on how you construct this. Um, and then a different percentage or different incentive structure for sales. And there's two different categories of sales. So we have enhancement sales, so extras sold to an existing customer, and then we have brand new sales that are new to the company that you've never had before, right? And so those can be two completely different buckets. So you really have different things going on here. I think the important thing to do is to back your way into this and say, if my account manager really hit a home run on all these different aspects, so the renewal, um, the enhancement, they hit their sales goal for the enhancements, they hit their sales goal for new sales, and everything came together. What would I be comfortable paying this person? And identify what that is, and then work your way backward into the percentages.
Mhm. Great. Well, we won't take up any more of your time, Phil. We certainly appreciate you coming on today to educate everyone, especially with the season coming up. This was very valuable. We will be sharing the presentation and the additional information that Phil referred to at the beginning of the presentation with everyone who registered to attend the webinar today. So thank you again, Phil, and
Very
thank you
welcome.
everyone for joining.